Before there was Elden Ring, before there was Sekiro, there was Bloodborne. Bloodborne was my first From Software game, and you never forget your first. I'd bought it on a whim to satisfy a craving for a spooky game to play one Halloween, and I thought its world and atmosphere were just the coolest. However, one thing I was not prepared for was its difficulty. At the time, I had never heard of Demon Souls or Dark Souls, and certainly not about games in which you had to, quote, get good to even play them. And boy, did I ever suffer. At first, I didn't know either how to parry or to dodge, and I quickly ran out of blood vials and bullets without any way to acquire more. It was extremely demoralizing, and I put the game down, both dejected and indignant. But a friend of mine, who's a big fan of these games, encouraged me to go back, and we did a co-op session. With him by my side, to basically kill all the enemies for me, I could level up and get a bit stronger. And suddenly, I wasn't dying constantly. We beat Father Gascoigne together, and the feeling of achievement that I got was like nothing I'd ever experienced before in video games. I was hooked. The combination of challenging but rewarding combat mixed with fascinating, mysterious, and sinister lore made me fall down a rabbit hole. Or rather, into a dream from which I have yet to wake. I platinumed the game and went on to do the whole panoply of Soulsborne. All the Dark Souls, Sekiro, and then Elden Ring. And now, on the 10th anniversary of Bloodborne's launch, I decided to return to my first love. To experience it in a whole new way through attempting a Blood Level 4 run. I.e., a run in which you don't level at all. I just finished an Elden Ring Level 1 run. Basically. So this gave me a bit of confidence. Confidence that for someone at my, shall we say, only slightly above average skill level, beating Bloodborne without leveling up might actually be possible. Compared to Elden Ring, how hard could it be? On the other hand, Bloodborne and Elden Ring are very different games. Elden Ring's open world and extended mechanics allows you so much freedom to try bosses in the order that you want, freedom to upgrade materials almost whenever you want, and freedom to experiment with a wide range of status effects and weapons. Bloodborne is much more rigid in its progress and its upgrades. And status, which let me sail through large parts of Elden Ring, is very, very limited. I also haven't played Bloodborne in literally years, and I never really felt like I mastered the movesets of the major bosses in the way that I did for Elden Ring. Finally, and more importantly, the thing that scares me the most about a Bloodborne Level 4 run is the healing system. Unlike most of the other Soulsborne games, where your healing items were replenished after every rest or death, in Bloodborne the healing items, blood vials, are consumables that you have to find in the world, mostly by killing enemies. And, much like the economies of the major Western nations, Bloodborne's healing economy greatly favors those who are already doing well. In other words, if you're going through the game beating bosses in one or few tries, everything is fine. But if you're struggling, and you gotta think that in a challenge run you're gonna struggle, it's very easy to run out of blood vials and be forced to farm 20 blood vials before each attempt. It's torture. For this first challenge run, our constraints will be minimal. The goal is to start from a fresh save file, play the game, and roll credits while still being Blood Level 4. Anything else is fine. Summons, rune, blood gems, and the use of other mechanics in the game are all fine. So with this in mind, let's play some Bloodborne. I start by creating my character Karen, but a spooky version this time. There are a range of starting classes, but for a Blood Level 4 run, we don't have a choice. We start as a pitiful waste of skin, with 11 vitality, 10 endurance, 10 strength, and 10 skill. That's all the stats we're gonna get. I wake up in the sick room and immediately head to the first lamp, getting transported to the hub world, the Hunter's Dream. Our stats are very low, but our 12 strength and 10 skill allow us to wield the only weapon we'll need for this run, the Saw Cleaver. I also picked the blunderbuss because I heard it has the widest parry window of the two starting pistols. Since I'm assuming our regular damage will be pretty bad, being able to get extra damage through a parry and subsequent visceral attack will be essential. I introduce myself to Gehrman, who says he's my friend, and assures me that I'll start feeling a bit better if I start murdering a few things. Something seems a bit off with him.
That is disgusting.
And now it's time to explore the beautiful city of Yharnam. While I admire its architecture, I reflect on the route that I'll take in the run. Bloodborne has a large number of bosses, but not all of them are required to finish the game. There are some who are required to get a particular ending, and some who appear as part of the DLC, but since I expect that a basic Blood level 4 run will be hard enough, I'm only going to do the minimum to roll credits. But which ones are really required? And now spoiler alert for basically all of Bloodborne. Starting from the end, Bloodborne's ending involves the player making an important choice, whether or not to defy our friendly hunter friend, Gehrman, who, after we've killed enough eldritch horrors, decides that we have served our purpose and proposes to execute us so that we can, wake up and still be in Yharnam, and I'm honestly a little unclear on what actually happens in this ending. In a normal playthrough, we generally refuse so that we can get to fight him and then optionally fight the Moon Presence monster. However, it's possible to just say, okie dokie, and end the game right there. So actually, the real final mandatory boss is Murgo's wet nurse. In order to beat the nurse, we have to get through the Nightmare of Mensis, whose midpoint is guarded by the often difficult, always annoying, Mikolash, host of the nightmare. To get to Mikolash, we have to beat the One Reborn and Yahar Ghul, which is only fully accessible to us after the Blood Moon is triggered by killing the vacuous spider Rom. Rom herself is found in Bergenwith College, whose entrance is guarded by the 3 Shadows of Yharnam. These shadows are found at the end of the Forbidden Woods, which can only be accessed via a password obtained from touching a skull after fighting Vicar Amelia. Now, the Dishy Vicar lives in the Grand Cathedral Cathedral Ward, which opens up to the player only after defeating the crazed Father Gascoigne. And the Good Father is accessible right from the start of the game. So, all in all, that means there are only 7 mandatory bosses to beat Bloodborne. Piece of cake. Of course, since we will be doing a no leveling run, we will need some way to increase our damage and health without using the game's currency, souls. I mean runes. I mean blood echoes. Yeah, it's blood echoes. For this, we will be required to acquire a certain number of items, which are locked behind 3 early game bosses, the Cleric Beast, the Bloodstarved Beast, and the Witch of Hemwick. So, all in all, our run will involve beating 10 bosses, all without leveling up. The most important first step before we head to Gascoigne is to upgrade our saw cleaver. I go around Yharnam collecting bloodstone shards with the goal of getting my cleaver to +3 before the first boss. This is actually relatively easy. I find a certain number of shards around the level and farm the rest relatively quickly. I also seek out Gascoigne's daughter, who gives me a music box that plays his favorite song. In the fight, this music box will briefly distract him so that I can get a couple of free hits in. And I think I'll need all the hits I can get. So now, it's time to test out fighting Gascoigne at Blood level 4. Gascoigne is very fast, and he has a surprisingly large moveset, which involves 3 different phases. Fortunately, he actually doesn't do that much damage, so even when I screw up, I can take a hit at level 4 without dying. I, on the other hand, am doing respectable damage with a +3 cleaver, so the fight actually ends up being totally manageable. The first time I fight him, I get a bit careless and he smushes me. But the second time, I keep my focus and finish him off with a combination of the music box and a Molotov cocktail. Gascoigne defeated, we can enter Odin's chapel. On my way, I pick up the Blood Gem Workshop tool, which will allow us to use blood gems to increase our weapon's damage. I stick a gem that I found in a brooch on Gascoigne's wife's corpse into my weapon to acquire an extra 2.7% damage. I know that 2.7% is not a huge increase, but at this point I'll take what I can get. Since we're not leveling, I put all my echoes into buying blood vials. We should have enough to continue playing, at least for now. Ready to start the next phase of the game, I enter Cathedral Ward. My first stop is to open up the path to Old Yharnam, and in the church on the way, I meet someone who will become very important in this run. Alfred. Alfred asks us to join him on a quest that, at this point, seems legit. Although, spoiler alert, this quest ends up becoming kind of like ethnic cleansing-y by the end of the game. But for the moment, I engage in some realpolitik, and choosing to ignore Alfred's true motives, I agree to cooperate with him. He gives me some fire paper, and can now be summoned for our first optional boss, the Cleric Beast. Although it's not essential, killing the Cleric Beast will give us the Sword Hunter badge, which allows us to buy, among other things, unlimited antidotes for the next boss, and a way to unlock a shortcut to the boss after that. Also, he's freaking cool looking, and really not very hard. Indeed, with Alfred on my side, the Cleric Beast doesn't cause any problems. Now that I can open up the upper part of Cathedral Ward, I can continue to upgrade my weapon. I pick up the twin bloodstone shards in Upper Cathedral Ward, carefully dodging, or failing to dodge, executioners and brainsuckers. I then take a relaxing trip to Hemwick Charnel Lane, where I will be able to find more upgrade materials and open up the path to fight another optional boss.
Please. I forgot that I don't have very much health. Oh no, oh come on, that's so unfair. Let's go. Go get it, yes.
But before we take on Hemwick, there's another boss we have to do. The Bloodstarved Beast. This poor victim of animal abuse is also technically an optional boss. But killing her has a number of benefits that will be essential in this run. First, she opens up a new area, the Healing Church Workshop, which leads into another one, Upper Cathedral Ward. We're not going to be doing any of the bosses there, but we'll go there for upgrade materials. Second, her death opens up the possibility to get bonked on the head and stuffed into a bag, and then transported to yet another area, the Hypogean Jail. Again, we don't need to fight the boss there, but we will get some sweet upgrades. Finally, upon defeat, the Bloodstarved Beast drops the Tumeru Chalice, which opens up the Chalice Dungeons. We'll get to what the Chalice Dungeons are later. The Bloodstarved Beast can be very dangerous, with its erratic moves, its long combos, and the poison emanating from it during the final phase. However, my +5 cleaver, combined with fire paper, does good damage. I also bring along Alfred, who does a great job of drawing the beast's aggro. And, soon enough, the Bloodstarved Beast is done.
No sweat. Way to go, Alfred. I don't like your politics, but I like your methods.
His purpose served, I can now leave Alfred to his own devices. I shudder to think what those might be. I return to Cathedral Ward to work on acquiring a new summons for the next part of the game, Henrique. Henrique is a hunter who, like Gascoigne, has gone crazy. And we have to help the Hunter of Hunters, sorry, I can't do the accent, Eileen, put him out of his misery. Once we do that, we can summon him to help in future boss fights, and he's pretty good. Of course, the downside is that since he's a good fighter, it means that killing him in the first place is actually quite challenging. Especially because he keeps shooting me in the face and stun-locking me. I end up deciding that the best strategy is to turn the tables on him and keep him distracted while Eileen goes to town. We finally get him, and I receive the Air Rune, which we can equip to acquire more blood echoes from visceral attacks. Well, we could equip it if we had the Rune Workshop tool. So that's what we're going to get next. This tool is found in a room after our final optional boss, the Witch of Hemwick. Defeating the witch is also required to eventually open up a late game area, Canehurst Castle, where later we'll go to find, you guessed it, more upgrade materials.
Okay.
The Witch of Hemwick is a boss with a bunch of tricks to it. The first trick is that it's not actually the Witch of Hemwick, it's the witches. Although it seems like there's only one, there are actually two identical witches teleporting around the area. And once you kill the first one, you'll see the second one's health bar.
Oh shit.
Take too long to kill the second one, and she'll resurrect the first one, and then you're stuck in a horrible cycle. The second trick is that some of the difficulty in the fight comes from the monsters that the witches summon. But they can actually only summon them if you have insight. A common strategy, then, is to go into the fight with 0 insight, and then you just have the two witches to deal with. Because I'm not taking chances, I do my first real attempt at the boss with no insight. I'm feeling pretty relaxed. Everything is fine in the first phase, and with a +6 cleaver, my damage is excellent. But then, there is the second phase. In addition to the first witch reviving, both witches gain a series of attacks that can stun you and make you vulnerable to a grab attack. In a normal
But
run,
it's not
it's
so
easy to just
bad.
tank the damage and keep hacking
No, I'm
away.
super dead. Oh no. Oh
But at
no.
blood level 4,
Oh,
it
no,
takes
this
my
is
whole health bar.
awful.
I tried a bunch of times, and each time a witch pops out of the middle of nowhere, grabs me, and suddenly the fight is
dead.
over.
Come on.
Is this for real? Are the witches of Henwick the first wall of this run? Frustrated and frankly embarrassed, I decide to work a little bit more on my build.
I can't handle it.
I do some artistic falling and head to the lower level of the healing church. Here I outsmart a brainsucker and acquire a fire blood gem. When I put this into my weapon, it will turn my damage to fire damage and increase it by 8.4%. This is strategic because our next mandatory boss, Vicar Amelia, is weak to fire. I had memories of finding the Vicar very difficult when I first played Bloodborne, so I again decided to go for a summon, Henriette. The thing about summons is that they have pros and cons. On the plus side, they can do extra damage and draw aggro from the boss, and this can be very valuable. On the downside, however, they can make the boss less predictable than going solo, and they significantly increase the boss's health pool. If you have a summon like Alfred, who's very good at their job, then it's totally worth invoking them. But if the summon is not up to scratch, then it's best to go it alone. It turns out that Henriette is in this latter category. She's not great. She loses half her health even getting to the boss, and dies mid-fight. But once I decide to let Henriette sit this one out, Vicar Amelia is defeated quickly. I can now enter the Forbidden Woods, continue progressing the game, and improving my build. In the Forbidden Woods, you can get the Tonsil Stone from Patches, which will transport you to the Nightmare Frontier. Again, we're not going to fight the boss, but this area has one thing that we really want, Bloodstone Chunks, the second to last level of upgrade materials. Other early chunks are available in Canehurst if we get the summons from Yosefka's clinic. But so now we really have to beat that goddamn Witches of Henwick. I steel myself and return to Henwick, prepared to do something I never ever thought I'd have to do with this boss. Play strategically. So the strategy that ended up working was to capitalize on the fact that you can damage the second witch in the first phase, i.e. before they start doing their grab attacks. If you hit the second witch, the main health bar will not go down, and that's because it's the health bar of the first witch. So the strategy is to damage the first witch as little as possible while you whittle down the second witch's health. Then when the first witch finally dies, the second witch is almost dead, and you can spend as little as time as possible in base 2. This finally works, and now I can use both Carol runes and go to Canehurst for my precious, precious chunks. Canehurst is a beautiful area, one of my favorites, but in this run, I just whip in, get the chunks, and whip out. With a plus 8 weapon, I'm assuming that I'm going to be okay for the next couple of bosses. Next up are the Shadows of Yharnam. This terrible trio is composed of 3 shades, each of which has different abilities. One has a big katana, one shoots fireballs, and one spews fire from a candlestick. In a normal run, the fight is hard because it's 3-on-1, and you have to manage dodging all their attacks and whittling down each of their health pools. However, I came prepared. Because I killed Henrique in Cathedral Ward, I can summon him. And I can also summon the young Madaras twin, so now the fight looks very different. The Madaras twin is okay, but Henrique is the real star. Going from a 3-on-1 to a 1-on-1 more or less trivializes the fight, and even at level 4, I beat the Shadows on the second try. Now we enter Bergenwood College and face off against the vacuous spider Rom and her many, many children. I have a confession. Even on a normal run, I hate Rom. She just sits in the center of the arena, barely moving, and yet still I usually have difficulty with her. I generally consider killing the baby spiders too much of a pain, and so I just keep doing like drive-by hits on Rom, running in and out, avoiding them. At level 4, however, this strategy is a disaster. The spiders jump on me and one-shot me. That is, when I'm not getting one-shotted by Rom's Proto-Elden Stars incantation. I consider summoning Henrique to at least draw some of the spider's aggro. But, contrary to the Shadows fight where he dominated, the spiders are just destroying him. His AI doesn't understand that he needs to hit the bodies, not the heads. And so I conclude that Henrique as a summon is at best situational. After the Witches of Hemwick, Rom is shaping up to be the next wall of the run. I turned to the internet for some help, but all the how to kill Rom guides develop one basic strategy. Get yourself as strong as possible to do as much damage as possible in the first phase to essentially skip the last two. So we need to do more damage, but we have a problem. We can't level up, and the rest of our weapon upgrades are found after Rom. So what can we do? Well, it turns out that there are other mechanics in Bloodborne that don't involve leveling that can actually make our character stronger. Blood gems and Carol runes. Although some gems and runes are found in the story world, the best ones are found in the Chalice dungeons. The Chalice dungeons are a pretty significant component of the game that most people actually don't explore very much. At least I never did. There are a whole series of story dungeons, but what interests us in this run are the root dungeons. These are procedurally generated mazes that house untold horrors, but also great riches. So my strategy is to go into the Chalice dungeons and find the best runes and gems I can to finish up my build. And here we see the main benefits of playing Bloodborne in 2025. The community. These tomb prospectors have delved deep into the bowels of the randomly generated chalices and documented the treasures that can be found therein. Treasures such as unlimited blood echoes, top-tier runes that increase both my health and stamina, upgrade materials such as blood rocks, and blood gems that increase my physical, fire, and bolt attacks by over 20%. When I finally emerge, my damage is much better. I patiently kill all of the spiders, and
No!
more attempts.
Yes!
I finally defeat their many
Oh,
enemies.
thank God. Oh, thank God. Oh my God.
This triggers the blood moon and ushers me into the last part of the game. I race through Yahar Ghul, picking up the last couple blood chunks that, along with the blood rock I found in the Chalice dungeons, will take my saw cleaver to +10. The boss of Yahar Ghul is the One Reborn, and once you kill the Bell Maidens who buff him, he's usually a bit of a pushover. This run is no exception, and I beat him first try. Then I jump into the Nightmare to fight its host, Mikolash. After the One Reborn, I was feeling pretty confident, so I decided to try fighting Mikolash the normal way. Well, I guess I could have predicted that. And that. And that. You know what? Screw this guy. I don't have time for his shenanigans. I know cheese. Okay, so basically to cheese Mikolash, you just gotta get a bunch of poison knives and keep throwing them at him the entire time. Then you add a couple of Molotov cocktails and oils to make things go a bit faster. And voila, the host of the Nightmare is forced to wake up. Majestic. So now we're already at the final boss. Murgo's Wet Nurse. The Wet Nurse's combos deal a lot of damage, but honestly, if you're careful, you can just mostly avoid getting hit. She does have this difficult phase where she spawns purple clones, but if you just run around the arena, they're really easy to dodge. I'm being very cautious, so it's a long fight, but at the end of the second try, I defeat the final mandatory boss in the game, and get ready to surrender myself to Gehrman. So that's it, a basic run of Bloodborne at blood level 4. How hard was it, really? Actually, not that hard. Armed with good blood gems from the Chalice dungeons, my damage stayed okay right up to the end of the game. And with the Carol runes that increased my health, I never really actually got into the every single hit one-shots me territory that I saw quite early in Elden Ring. On the other hand, I only did the mandatory bosses, so the hardest walls I had to face actually came in the form of the Witches of Hemwick and, believe it or not, Rom the Vacuous Spider. I assumed that other late-game bosses and DLC bosses, like Gehrman, Ludwig, Maria, and the Orphan of Kos, would give me a much harder time. But on the other hand, fighting them would have also made for a much more fun run. You see, Bloodborne has this problem in that its mandatory endgame bosses are kind of mediocre compared to both the beginning ones and those found in the DLC. So it'd be nice to do a challenge run again, but do all bosses this time. Maybe I'll do that for Bloodborne's 11th birthday. So happy 10th birthday, Bloodborne. I know I'll be continuing the search for Pale Blood for many years to come.